have a lot of illnesses. It is going around, I know it is. I did mention that today is the, we're going to do our, what is it, the review for the test. I know the test is supposed to be Thursday. And so, honestly, if you have been here on a regular basis, you should do fine, honestly. The way that the test is set up, I'm going to give you the review, and if you know these concepts, then when you come to the test, you will have the colors, I guarantee it. And that's kind of the hope. What I don't want you to do is fill this out with incorrect information. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys the class period to kind of do the review, and like the last 15 or 20 minutes, I will go back through and ask if there's any questions and make sure that your answers are kind of close. But I'm not going to give you the answers to where you can just wait till the last 15 minutes and fill this out. Okay, because that would be counterproductive. Okay, so let's go through this first together just so you get an idea of some of the things, because, you know, when I'm looking for definitions, I'm not necessarily looking for you to look it up in Webster. I'm more looking for what we talked about and the way that we discussed it in context, right? And so the context of the English class and your different writing modes and so on and so forth that you work through. So far, your writing modes that you've worked through has been, let's see, we've done a rhetorical, not rhetorical, what have we done? We've done a review, we've done a compare and contrast, and we have a problem solution. So, so those are the three modes of writing that we have completed already, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look through this and just discuss a few things. And there's a section that we actually have to go through before, and I told you we would. Before you do this, that will answer questions basically 9 through 15. And so we'll go through that as a lesson today, and the rest of the time we'll be filling this out. Okay? So for, it says complete the worksheet to be sure that you understand the following concepts, and then if you do, you'll do well on the test. Example, if you were to define something like evaluation, evaluation is to discuss the value of something using a specific pre-prescribed criteria. So when we did the evaluation paper, we had to come up with the criteria. Okay. For thesis, there's a couple things, and I have thesis a couple times throughout your different questions about it. But not only should you know what a thesis statement is, that means put, place, or position, but you should also know that it's the guiding, piece to your guiding backbone to your essay, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of stuff you want to write down. What do I know about thesis? It's going to help me. What are the rules about a thesis statement? Genre. I gave you the definition of a genre there, just so you have it. But basically, it's just a writing genre is like essay, poem, journal, and there's a zillion of them. It could be a business letter. It could be a proposal. It could be. I only gave you a few there, but a genre is just. It could be a memo. It could be an email. Okay. But if you see an email as a person who, even if you've never studied English, you have some certain expectations of that document, right? Or if you see a proposal. If I see a proposal, I'm expecting dates. I'm expecting, you tell me how much it's going to cost. I have those expectations because I know what the genre is. And so it helps me. So if I'm looking for an essay, for example, if I'm looking for a persuasive essay, as a reader, if it's a persuasive essay, I'm going to be looking for data. I'm going to be looking for facts. I'm going to be looking for quotes. Okay, so basically knowing the genre is going to help me understand how I'm going to be able to use that text as a reader. Okay, and so that's what you're always trying to do. Is, as a writer, you have to have an audience, or it's stupid to write. Okay, and so you always have to anticipate what it is that your readers want to get out of your paper. And so your thesis basically guides you know, how you tell people how they're going to go about your paper, okay? If you're writing a memo, memorandum for record, right? That basically what you tell people, we are now going to change our policy from this to this. That explains to your reader, you know, what they can expect to read. What's the new policy? When is it going to take effect? How does it change me? Understand why we need to know about genres? And that's what that's all about. And then the modes on number 3, you're going to define. There's really actually only 4 major modes of writing. Expository, I think, persuasive. I was trying to think of the other 2. Argumentative, persuasive one. But there's a whole bunch of subcategories, and so I gave you some of the subcategories that have come about: narrative, expository, analysis, and so on. Okay. A number 5, analogy. I'm kind of trying to give you the context of where you learn this, so you know where to go back to your notes and look. When we were talking about synthesis and analogy, is when we were talking about compare and contrast, and how when you compare things that you can use analogy to compare them in different ways. And then synthesis is after I have done, after I'm completed with my analyses and I'm completed with my evaluations, and I can pull all of my material together and synthesize it into one product. And so that's where those vocabulary words came from. Tone was like when we were talking about the turkeys in the kitchen and the serving in Florida and so on and so forth. And we talked about the author's attitude and how we can compare those things. It's very important to know the author's tone because and we find it out through lots of different ways. We can figure it out by their syntax, by the words that they use. We can sometimes we can figure it out by things that they neglect to say. Sometimes we can find their attitude out because they actually just put it right out there. I quit my job because I was so disgusted or whatever. So that's ways that you can figure out an example of tone for yourself. Theme, you need to know the difference between theme and thesis. It's very important to know that difference. Okay. Number 8, a metaphor is also another way of comparing. So we learned that when we were learning about compare and contrast using metaphor. I'm going to skip 9 through 15 for just a minute. We'll come back to those. Number 16, verisimilitude. We had talked about that, especially when we were talking about the story. I talked pretty sometime today or whatever. Verisimilitude is the appearance or semblance of truth or reality, quality, or of seeming truth, based off a person's attitude, demeanor, or reputation, such as when one encounters doubtful statements, but from someone who seems credible. That's one definition. And then and the thing about it is, just think about this kid who comes in, and he's just adorable, and he says, "Oh, Mommy, I didn't break the toy. I don't know what happened," but he was actually out cycling. All right. That's verisimilitude because he's so, his demeanor is so such that you want to think that he's a credible person, or, his kids are in his class because I'm late all the time because you want to know that the reason why they're late is true, but it's because you're not planning them. Right? Well, I'm calling him out. Okay, but that's verisimilitude. You can show verisimilitude in your papers. Sometimes it's just the way that a person sounds, the way that, like for example, I can create verisimilitude by, I can make a Southern belle who, you want them to sound so perfect. So they sound so sweet and innocent, yet they're backstabbing their characters, right? That's another example of verisimilitude in like a story or so on and so forth. Okay? Be able to talk about paragraph unity, know what needs to be in a unified paragraph, what I mean by adequate development, adequate as opposed to inadequate, right? You can look the different types of transitions up, or you can just think about it. What kind of transition would show similarity, for example? Likewise, that would be one likewise. Okay. Number 22. I don't know if we directly talked about this. I think we might have, but it was something that was kind of said, and I want you guys to know the difference. What is the difference between a topic and a subject? Which one is more broad? Okay, so a subject is more broad. What would be an example of a subject? English, or math class, or cats. Yeah. So a subject is just whatever, you know, the person up being painted is the subject of a painting, right? So that is very broad. And if I just say cats, well then you can write a world of anything on it. So it doesn't give you any kind of foundation. It doesn't give you any kind of foundation. So then for topic, a topic would be an example of topic.
Leopards.
No, that's a subject.
Oh.
Leopards is a subject, just like cats.
Well, it would be a subtopic, I guess.
Yeah, it could be yeah. Leopards are a type of cat that, that's a topic, right?
Okay.
Something that is a little bit more narrow.
So English is my worst subject.
Right. Or how, English is my worst subject because I never took the time to study it through school because I didn't do this, because I didn't do that, and do the project organization. That is a bite-sized topic that you can actually write on. So that's the difference. And so when we think of what we're going to write, we can't just think of subjects. We have to think of topics and then narrow our topic as much as we can so that it is a manageable size to write a paper on. Okay, so that's what I meant there. You guys can do the rest of those on that page. You think you understand them. Number 27, I kind of tried to give you an example without like doing the work for you. So, attached an example of a properly formatted labeled outline for a 5-paragraph essay. The point is the likelihood is you have to show that you can outline and that you know what has to go into an outline by way of labeling. Okay, and so, for example, the intro paragraph. Inside the intro paragraph, I would obviously include background information, the thesis, and then what else. So that one, remember, would be what's the what else, by the way?
Projected
organization. So when I did my outline, it's going to look like this, right? It's got one, it's got your end of it has your thesis statements. Well, that's okay because these words say that. So. He's always late with it. Okay, so thesis, and then after your thesis, your projected organization becomes your A, B, and C, and then in topic 2. Topic sentence is about A, right? And so on and so forth. So you have to be able to do that. But remember, I like to say X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, and C just because then I don't get mixed up. So if this is about X, I have to have at least an A and a B. Remember the rules? And this is the rules that it's testing. If you remember that if you put an A, you have to have a B. If you put a 1, you have to put a 2. And C is optional, 3 is optional. So that's the rules that they will test you on. And that okay, thesis development. Know your basic rules about development at a college level. So so even though we say math is my English is my worst subject, that's a statement, that's our thesis statement, right? But English is my worst subject because X, Y, and Z can be thesis statement. So know your rules. Can it be a question? Should you outright state what your topic is? I'm going to be talking about. Remember the crazy lady analogy I gave you guys? The whole just run outside and say a statement and see what people would say. Okay. And then for grammar, be able to correct sentence errors such as fragments, run-ons, or comma splices using the methods that we discussed in class. You may choose to review the section 30 through 47 in your everyday writer text. That has all of the different rules for you to kind of just glance over. I know it's boring reading, or you can go through the exercises again that we did, because I like to keep those. And then for MLA, you need not memorize how to reference specific types of media. So you don't have to memorize how to do, the full citation with the book and the author's name and all that. Because you can look that kind of stuff up. That's why you have a reference tool in the first place. But you do need to understand some of the basics, such as how to use parenthetical citations and where they usually appear in the paper. Where do they appear?
That reporting from?
Anywhere you're reporting, do they appear at?
After.
Yeah, they don't appear in the works cited thing. So you need to know that the parenthetical stuff appears up in the body of your paper. Understand the rules about quoting material. Remember that quotes have to be exact if you're quoting them. Now, if you're paraphrasing, you can still unfairly paraphrase, can't you? Okay, by like claiming things that people don't claim and so on and so forth. So you have to treat the material, if it's not your own, with a lot of respect, and people don't think about that. Okay. And then I said, know the basic format of a properly formatted MLA document. If you guys would put this like on the back of one of those papers or whatever. Okay, so if this is your sheet, you have to have your name first and last, and then it's double space, so a space, and then English 090. I like for you guys to put AM, PM only because it helps me know if I accidentally get them mixed up. Space, the date, which today is what, October 16th, 2012. Space, and then it says to put the professor's last name. I like the last name and then whatever the assignment is. So if this is exam, for example, but it could be CNCSA. Or it could be CNCSA working up draft, or it could be, you know what I'm saying? Then you have to have your last name, page number.
I thought the professor came above the date.
As long as the information is there.
Oh, okay.
And then it's just one space and the title of the paper, which is usually a unique title, not Baron Conduct. Okay? That is how you set up a document. Okay.
So are you wanting to know, like everything is double spaced and Times New Roman 12 or?
Just basic
Okay.
stuff, yeah. So, one inch margins, just the basic stuff, so that you can set up. In fact, I didn't do your lines on that. Also know your short stories. Be familiar with all the stories that you've read this term, which include Serving Florida Turkeys in the Kitchen, On Dumpster Diving in Pot Creek someday, and Nature's Paparazzi. What do I mean by that? I am not going to get meticulous and say a quote, what stories from this from, or I'm not going to say what character said this or anything like. It's not. It is all general style questions, probably about evaluation, about problem solution, about those types of things. It's going to probably be, well, actually, I know what it's going to be because I forgot the test for it. It's a essay style response, or short answer response to a couple of those short stories. Okay?
So we can't just say I thought it was stupid.
You can't just say I thought it was stupid. It doesn't work.
I didn't like that story. How about that one?
Yeah, no. Every time I used to say something stupid, then you stupid. And I said, you stupid. Okay, so I told you we would go back to, and I've already kind of alluded to this, we worked a little bit on rhetorical analysis through, I don't think this class did because I think you guys are trying to get your, because of the time on the slides the other day. So number 9, rhetorical analysis. This is, we were moving on towards the rhetorical analysis. We are actually back to being, as far as our schedule is concerned, back on track. So today it says, if you look at it, it says turn in final essay, but it has this little dot, which means to look over here, and it's due like the 25th or something like that. It's due next Thursday, I believe. Anyway, so I will be turning all your papers back to you while you do your test on Thursday. So you'll have a pile of papers, and that way everybody kind of, as you leave and have your papers, and you can just go. So the only thing you're going to do on Thursday is you're going to come in, you're going to take your test, you're going to turn it in, and wait. You don't have to wait for anybody else to finish. You're done when you're done. Okay? What date does it say? You go to today's date. Which is
Under today's date, it just says midterm review.
yeah, so midterm review. Where is it today?
This one.
Okay. So then Thursday, final draft problem solution essay is due Thursday the 18th. Final of, Thursday, test on Thursday the 18th. Final of persuasion essay is due Thursday the 25th. Okay, so you'll get your problem solution essay back on Thursday, and you'll have a week to finish it. Understand? So we're back on track. Okay, so we're back on track as far as the schedule is concerned, so you guys hopefully will be able to keep that. But again, just like anything, it can change. Alright? So we're moving on to rhetorical analysis, and this is actually the next mode of paper that you're going to write. And what a rhetorical analysis is what does rhetoric mean? Or where have you heard it before?
Like recording something, so like saying that you don't know how to explain it, like things that you run yeah.
Okay. Where, what, how. So that's what analysis is, analyzing. Yeah.
So arguing why you think something.
Kind of.
I'm trying so hard to explain it.
I think you know. I think you're there. Have you guys ever heard of a rhetorical question?
That's what, yeah.
What do we do with a rhetorical question?
You don't answer it, usually.
You don't answer it, what'd you say? And it does have answers, but the problem is it has so many answers that none necessarily outweigh, or, there's not one that outweighs another. So rhetoric really is psychobabble. I like to say, and this comes from me, it's a marketing ploy. Okay? Rhetoric is really a marketing ploy, or an advertisement for an idea. Okay? And so a rhetorical analysis then is taking apart other people's art, taking apart somebody else's argument or ideas, and then what do? We revert back to evaluation. It's kind of like math. Did you know that there's only one operation in math, really? There's only addition. There's no such thing as anything but addition in math.
Can you tell my GL?
It's true. If I subtract, I'm adding negative numbers. If I multiply, I'm just multiplying positive numbers by them. So it's always plus, plus, plus. 5 plus 5 is 10 plus 5 is 18 and 10. If I divide, I am dividing by the reciprocal of the positive numbers. Everything is added, no matter what you do. Same thing. Everything really is evaluated. So we're looking at analysis, and we're looking at people's arguments, and we're saying, is one argument outweigh another? Or does it? And what we try to do is we try to appeal to people to make them kind of follow us, which is what politicians do, right? Mm-hmm. Well, way back in Greece, we used to have what? We had Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and all of those great philosophers, and they came up with rhetorical analysis or rhetorical speeches as a way to basically look at morality and look at laws. And they were trying to develop laws so that they could have a civilized city-state. Okay, and so in developing the way that people behave, whether they behave moral, immoral, or amorally, was what they were talking about. How ought people behave? And so they would start these arguments, and they were very philosophical in nature. Should we kill people? Should we do this? Should we do that? And should I be able to take all of your stuff? After all, It's a free-for-all. Nobody owns anything. So if I can take your stuff, then bring it over here. What's to say that you're not going to take my stuff and bring it over there? So they said, well, that's stupid. We can't just keep going taking stuff back and forth. Okay, well, if you come over here and try to take my stuff, I'm going to kill you. Well, those are bad things, right? So what they did was they started having these discussions and saying, okay, how ought we behave? I don't want you to take my stuff. Well, I don't want you to take my stuff. Well, let's create this law, this logical thing that says, and they created what was called the social contract, right? The social contract states that my rights of ownership end where your rights begin, okay? And so they started all these basically developments of laws and development of ideals, and now we call that moral behavior, okay? So that's really what rhetoric is thinking about moral behavior and how we ought to act and how we appeal to people to act the way we want them to act, whether it's right or wrong. There's three major appeals. Logos, ethos, and pathos. Okay? Logos is a logical appeal. Okay? We appeal to logic. Now, the thing is, whose logic? Okay? I can always convince you that if A is right, B is right, then C has to follow. But then sometimes your logic is flawed, and if there's flawed, if these appeals get flawed, we call those, and we're going to be working with them, fallacies. Like if we have a flaw in logic, if it really doesn't flow the way people try to convince you it flows, then we point out the fallacies in their argument. Okay? But logos is a logical argument. What kind of things would I have to present to you? For example, facts. What ways could I show logical appeal? If you give you facts.
You could give me
Opinion would have to be supported by
Facts.
okay, or
Evidence.
Yeah, evidence. Any kind of evidence. So facts, statistics, evidence, right there stuff. Stuff that is verifiable, by the way. This stuff has to be verifiable. Okay? Ethos. What does it sound like?
It's ethical.
There you go. Ethics.
It's on page 115.
Yeah. Ethics. Ethos. Ethics. Okay, and if I'm arguing ethics. Ethics, and we're going to go back to ethics here in a minute. Ethics, again, is the same thing we're talking about morality. What is a moral person? So, a lot of times businesses, because remember, businesses are also trying, they use a rhetorical ploys to get you to buy or purchase stuff, right? I appeal to your logic by saying everybody needs a new smartphone so that you don't have to be fumbling around for your bank account. Everything's all in one space. You take pictures, you do everything. So I'm appealing to your logic saying, isn't it logical just to have one device and 17 devices? I appeal to your ethics because maybe my company only uses green and stuff, right? Or we recycle all of our electronics, or we give to the March of Dimes, whatever. Those are all ethical appeals. Okay? So what kind of things would you write here as support for ethics?
Well, the book says appeals that support the writer's character.
Right, so character development. Moral, right? Behavior. Uprightness, any of those types of things. Okay? And then finally we have pathos, which by the way, I've been teaching this so long I didn't even read what the book says. So this is going off of me. So pathos, what does that mean? You had it.
Is emotion.
Emotion. Now it comes from the word pathology actually. And what is a pathologist do? So they go back into things, right? And so they're kind of they're kind of the scavengers of the group. But anyway, it's emotions. They appeal to emotion. Okay, and these types of appeals, what kind of things do you think what kind of ways would you use to appeal to people? That would be key.
Well, I would use persuasion. I mean, if I'm trying to get you to clean your room, then I'm trying to give you a persuasive reason to do it. If I'm trying to get you to buy my laundry detergent, then I would use all three, but
Can you use what?
Empathy.
Yeah. We use that all the time, right?
Yes.
Testimonials. Have you guys ever seen the testimonial where the person is? Well, we saw it when we were watching the slides, right? The eyes of an angel song going on, and all the animal rights stuff going across the screen, and so on and so forth. I haven't turned that out yet. Animal rights stuff going across the screen, and everybody going, "Oh, the poor dog! Oh, I don't want him to suffer! Oh, I'll give to the animal shelter. I'll go volunteer at the animal shelter, or I'll give 5 cents a day to the Ethiopian company, whatever." Okay. But a lot of times it's through testimonials, though. Have you guys ever seen that testimonial with the dad or the granddad who's talking about LASIK surgery, and he's driving his car, and he's like, "I just didn't feel safe driving my grandkids around until I got LASIK surgery, da da da." And then there used to be an older version where the kid goes, "Grandpa!" and grabs his leg, and everybody's all emotional, going, "Oh, I want my grand." Everybody wants their dad to be able to take their grandkids when you're my age, and everything. So they play on your emotion to get you to buy a product or whatever. So they use empathy, persuasive tactics, guilt trips. What is this?
money.
Bribery sometimes. So, not necessarily the most ethical thing in the world, right? Sometimes when we're going to this appeal, we're not as ethical. Okay? When we're looking at ethics, by the way, we have 3 more things. These are items. Help him out with the numbering, because you got to get ready. We're trying to help you fill this out.
Okay.
This is number 9, 10, and 11.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 words here: moral, immoral, and amoral. Again, all having to do with argumentation and having to do with appealing to you to figure out, whether you should do something or not. And most of us have a moral sense of ourselves. We say there's these cut and dry things we will and will not do. And some of us, our ethics are a little skewed, and we accept because of peer pressure, because of our societal norms. So ethics and moral is different. You have certain morals, and they're kind of set in stone. They're universal. And ethics is what a society accepts. So I can have an ethical appeal that's not morally correct. It's the way that's Miss Benjaminism is how I look at it. Because I have a certain moral conduct that is universal. It is not right to kill somebody. It is not right to steal. That's right. Those are things that almost every culture believes in. But then a culture will say, but if a person steals from me, then I can kill them. But if a person does this, then I can. So they justify it by other ways. So their ethics change their way that their moral standards are this, but then you can change it through ethics. Okay? A moral action is doing what is what? Okay. An immoral action is doing what is? Okay, yeah, doing what is wrong. Now I've got a little story that changes. Is that really moral and immoral? You guys have to decide. So if you, there's a little more, it's a caveat to it, because that's not really the definition. So here we go. I decide the dean's daughter, beautiful girl, she is drowning in the well. And I am I was just like, whoa, she's drowning in the well. I jump in and I save her. Moral act, immoral act, or amoral act?
Moral.
Okay, why is it moral?
Because you saved someone's
We
life.
save somebody's life, and that's something we value. It's a value we care about.
Right.
Now, same situation. I say, that's the dean's daughter. I was about to lose my job. I'm going to save her. And I save her because I want to keep my job.
Amoral.
Well, it's still moral, but it has a little tint of.
Oh, no, it's not
of
moral
gray.
anymore.
It's immoral.
Why is it immoral? I saved somebody's life. That's what's right.
That's dirty.
I saved your life. Oh! So that's what this word means. You got it. Amoral literally translates to something to the effect of, this is Ms. Benjamin's, this isn't Oxford English Dictionary's definition of amoral, but this is Ms. Benjamin's definition. Amoral basically translates to not of the moral scope. Okay? Truly, philosophers believe that there was right and there was wrong, and there was no delineation whatsoever. Either it was right or it's wrong. Stealing is wrong, that's it. It doesn't matter why you stole, it is wrong. Loving is moral, that's it. As long as you're loving, you're right. Understand? So philosophers truly believe that. So they have this doing what's right, doing what's wrong. But amoral is doing what is right for the wrong reason, or the opposite of that. Here you go. Different story. Moral, immoral, or amoral? Choose one. I stole bread. Immoral act. To feed my family because they were starving. Changes it, doesn't it? So, if it has consequences, not just natural consequences. I saved the gal's life and they chose to give me a bonus. It's totally different than I saved it because I wanted the bonus.
A moral actually wants that go unnoticed though. Anyone else's act is immoral. Doesn't matter what.
Which is why amoral means not within the realm of moral thinking. Okay? So, doing what is right simply because it's right. For no other purpose. You cannot have any outside purpose. And then immoral, doing what is wrong, that pretty much describes it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And then amoral is doing what's wrong for the right reasons, doing what's right for the wrong reasons. Okay? So, that will help you understand. Now, again, we're not using this today. This is kind of going into your argumentation, but it could go for your problem solution issues. You know, there could be a major moral problem. We were just discussing as people were walking in about the problem of overuse of the emergency services, where realistically you could probably call and get an appointment or go to a facility that's not emergency, but yet the emergency rooms every Thursday and Friday night packed to the point where I went in with actually kidney stones, bleeding like you don't know kidney stones. And it was like, oh, sit over there for 6 hours while we leave.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you get to the room and you're so excited when it's like
You're
3 hours
throwing
later.
up everywhere. I was actually throwing up on their floor. You do this little,
Yeah. Blue, little dinky thing.
so that they could take care. I know they triage them somewhat, but after this person's been waiting here 8 hours, but they still have the sniffles. You've been waiting there 4 hours, but you have something kind of bad. They'll still treat this person because they've been there 8 hours. You had the sniffles. You didn't need to be there in the first place, right? And so you could use some of this information definitely to help support some maybe or add a little bit to your persuasion or your papers, especially if your content is a little lacking, or as I said, your development is not adequate. Right? Okay, you guys have the rest of the period, probably up till we get out of here at 3:45. And then I'll ask you if there's any questions. I'll answer one or two that you get started. You can work together, you can chat a little bit, I don't mind. Nothing. Yeah, just know that those are examples. Yeah, I would say, yeah. I might say blank, ABCD is an example of genre, and I might have an essay, and I might have a persuasive, and I might have a narrative, and I might have a piece. You'd have to figure out, well, the theme is not a genre, but it's just not a genre. Oh, an essay is a genre. You have to know. There's one section that's multiple choice, there's one section that's matching, there's one section that's short answer,
So you pretty much,
this is just an example. And there's others too. I mean, you could have a zillion others. As I said, just understand that a genre is, yeah, type, right, type of writing. So this is the mode when you're writing. Yeah, so this is the mode you're writing. What is a narrative? It's a piece where. Right, so where you have a first-person narrator, where a first-person narrator tells the story. Expository is Yep. If you expose or explain, that's what it's like. You told me. You're the one who told me. Test thinking skills. You've already answered the question once, and it kind of comes back at another question later on. You go back up, right?
Yeah. Narrative is, how do I say that?
It's a story where first yeah. Tells the story. So it's told from a narrator's point of view. I just wanted to show this.
Projected.
No. What's the thesis?
Okay.
It can have. That's optional.
You have your intro, what you're going to be talking about, projected, which is like
But what I mean by thesis is what is thesis? Like, for example, if you're trying to convince someone of a restaurant or life, pros and cons, then you propose it to convince the person. Right. Or, if you want to convince somebody that, they're trying to talk somebody out.
So now you're just giving information.
So I'm trying to talk about voting for a certain 5A, whatever. We don't need theses. We already have 2 really good inspired persons or here. So your position is through argumentation. So what position are you trying to take? I plan to say that one should vote for 5A because, or one should not vote for it. That's the position. And because of the thing, because that can happen. And it doesn't always have to be because. Like you said, I don't like English. Just like we're doing our compare and contrast. Like a very contrast, you're telling the reader, in looking at these 2 things, person can see your position is so normal, right? Yeah. And then you're arguing by showing different ways of doing it. You were like, a metaphor is like areas like grass. Comparing 2 things, comparing 2 unalike things without using like grass. Simile is using like grass. An analogy is using comparing with one thing that is known. One thing that is known.
Yeah.
Or making, I should say, making the comparison between one thing that is known and something that is not. For example, you
Is that how you interpret?
Coherence is really, you show coherence through being that I can understand. Understandability really is what it is. And ways of messing up coherence would be like using the wrong word or using improper grammar. So like incoherent thought, jumbling up words. You have a short I can't even imagine. I just really want to see that. I have to. Like I really want to see. I want to compare and contrast. Oh, bad. You're like bad. I would not call you bad. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, guys, I got a treat for you. I forgot about that. This is because everybody's withering away.
My grandmother always had a first.
Yeah, my grandmother too.
Comparing 2 unlike things, not.
Oh, let me get the sign in too, guys.
No, they don't have to. Oh, well, yeah.
Better for me to wait until later anyway. I said thank you earlier.
The cat is like,
Yeah.
and then like compare
So, for synthesis and analogy,
cats are like dogs.
Well, okay, that's where you learn.
okay.
So he's kind of like all. Taking everything you basically know.
Right, but it's I know. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, where did I leave off? Did you get one?
Understandability by using correct grammar. Making you can correct me. Paragraph unity, like putting the correct things in the correct paragraph. Like being clear, or like
one controlling idea per paragraph.
it's possible.
Yeah, my grandma told me that my boyfriend was fat. The other day. She just, he's gained a lot of weight. I was like,
Don't forget to sign in. I'm going to send it around.
What is adequate development?
What is adequate?
Isn't it like
What is something? So, thesis is what? So, syn means together. So it's putting your argument together based off of all based off of analysis, based off of, so putting an argument together based on all of it. Theme is a universal weapon. That might be important for you to look at.
the main idea or topic of the course?
Or get somebody else kind of like remember we talked about serving in Florida and all of those specific themes of that.
It says it right there, but
universally.
no, where it's like
no one's
like
like
math,
to have to serve with a smile. Human
so it's like the
having
tone
of service.
the attitude about the subject. So I don't like that.
Can you help with adequate?
That was my example.
Yeah.
So in order to have, you were right basically when you say inadequate development.
Yeah.
Inadequate. Not
It's enough information.
enough support.
At least with English, a lot of the words are like pretty self-explanatory. No. Okay, so
How about this? What thing is how you make it not?
I haven't done these. I know
Jumble or out of sequence or
So just in sequence and just staying on topic.
yeah, not
and then I don't know
Okay.
proper English.
would be like, or sequence would be like making the random here, like the sequence is like, I'm gonna say this, and then having it the proper sequence. Proper order. Yeah, basically an order.
Oh, you didn't need to define those. I just wanted you to know the examples.
Okay. Well, I picked out and I'm assuming that's really what you're looking for. They don't let me out much.
I just want you to be able to say, if I told you, know the difference between a mode and a genre.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, did anybody miss signing in?
these are delicious.
I know. I saw Max today. He's here. I was up half the night last night. Seriously. Just, my brain wouldn't stop thinking about those two ladies who were hit. Those two ladies who were hit on Jefferson. What happened? There was a grandmother no relation to a mother, but both brought their children to school, and then the mother had a baby in the shoulder, and they were going to go across Interesting in North Carefree, and they were going across and trying to kill their mom and grandma. I couldn't stop thinking about it all night last night. That's all I could do was think about that.
I didn't hear about that. That's just summarizing it.
And then that little girl the body take their part. I hate meatballs.
Really?
Briefing us, Sheryl, summary. It's like briefing up all these things, all the codes, smaller. Basically, the show will be summarize.
Yeah. Well, summary is the same thing. Rolling down.
Wait, what?
Individual components.
Yeah, honestly.
Summary, brief statement or account of the main points of
Yeah.
Like, you don't like English, or you don't like math because blah, blah, blah. It has the three topics, and making sure that your body has at least three of those topics. Like, so
About organizing the paper in such a way that
yeah, I know she is.
your main subtopics are they're unrelated but they're friends. And so the grandma took, and I don't know if it was like the grandma the main caregiver for the person she took to school. Because usually the grandparents walk them in their
role in their life.
or like parents or not even kind of So I the mom who obviously took the child to school.
And then like revising
And
that
then had babies, so now there's a dad with a baby and a child who now is going to say, you know, the last thing that happened when mom took me to school. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. Messed up. I mean, the gal didn't mean to hit him. She was the gals who are stopped. There was no crosswalk. There was no crosswalk. They just tried to go across.
Will be a crosswalk now. Taking only a part of it and
What do you have for educating the device? Like outside?
What do I have for it? I have the answers.
I know.
I'm the one who made it up. That's one thing. You feel like you're omniscient when you do it. You got an answer.
paraphrasing more like paraphrasing is just paraphrasing is part of it.
If only.
Remember, para means under, underphrase. The difference between a summary and an underphrase. Summary is just the main basic details. paraphrase is taking their verbiage, making it similar to some people, so it might actually be a longer piece of the original. Yeah. Because you're trying to explain it. It would be like you saying, the conglomerate businesses in Colorado Springs take out the mom-and-pop stores. And you have to paraphrase that. And you're going to say, are you to paraphrase conglomerate? Well, that's just one word. But you might have to say, large businesses that often undersell small businesses in such a way that they can operate out of them. So it might be significantly longer to paraphrase, but it makes it simpler for
Making simpler.
by adjusting things like vocabulary and by explaining the Okay, guys, I told you that I will give you a couple minutes of question and answer where I'll kind of make sure. So, are there any that you guys are particularly don't know?
Incorrect sentences.
Everybody's good? All right, guys, we're reconvening in class now. Okay. So, is there any of these that you need help with before you go so you don't have them? Most of them you can look up, but again, it's generalized concepts. I'm not looking for, I am not going to say, what is the definition of, what is the Times New Roman, Oxford American Dictionary's definition of theme. You need to know that a theme is a universal idea, okay, that basically shows value to other people. So, for example, I'll give you an example of a thing we talked about in serving Florida. I just told her this one. In serving Florida and the other turkeys in the kitchen, the universal theme that was common between those is the theme of service. Because we all, as a human group, understand what it means to serve others. And a lot of times when we serve others, then we sacrifice for ourselves, right? And so the sacrifices we make in order to serve others is an example of a theme. Understand? The sacrifices we make in order to serve others is an example of a theme. So theme is not the same as thesis, okay? Unless I said it is important to sacrifice for others, right, in order to serve. That would be a thesis, wouldn't it? Okay, so they can correlate, but it's not exactly the same thing. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
What's the test like? Is it like multiple choice or?
There's 4 or 5. There's 5 sections, I think. Some of it's multiple choice. Some of it's matching, where you match numbers. Some of it is there's a couple of short answer essays, especially on the over the reading. There's some, I call it completion, where you have to either complete the sentence or fill something out. And then, like you say, there's an essay.
All right.
You have the whole period to do it. By the way, my suggestion is that you make sure you're in class. Because to make it up, I have to take you and the test to a testing center, and you have to sit with them and do it. And when you sit with them and do it, then you're missing class, not only the time that you missed, but then the second day as well.
Oh, I
So,
thought if you go to the testing center, they have to make it up on their own time.
Yeah.
You don't, it's not during the class,
Okay, good.
so don't say that, yeah, don't give that.
oh, okay, so yeah, so you're going to be missing your time, your own time. So my suggestion is, yeah, because I take the test and then you have to take it there. So, because I can't let you come here and take the test with everybody else already having seen the test and that. So it's when you're finished with the test next time, you hand it in and you leave. Okay? And I've timed it. I think it takes, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes.
Did you do it?
I do.
Yeah, like it doesn't.
Takes me a heck of a lot.
Yeah, I know.
So like about 6 or 7.
The average time, I would think.
It's almost like yeah.
It's not the matter of the teacher, it's the matter of the student.
Yeah.